Looking to expand his own knowledge of pipe reline and infrastructure rehabilitation, Brent Eckhart embarks on the journey into the no-dig construction world while interviewing experts in all facets of the industry. Hoping to find answers here is Brent Eckhart with Reline Unknown.
In this podcast, I sit down with Cassie Jordan from TV Pipe Solutions. We talk about women in construction, how she got into the reline industry from the tech world, and what makes her different than people who have been in the industry for 20 or 30 years. All right, I'm sitting here with Cassie Jordan on a cold, blistery winter day in Idaho, seeing what's going on in the reline world. How you doing, Cassie?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well. So, first off, we're going to start with just how you got into the reline business, a little work history, and how you got into the wonderful world of construction.
Okay. So my background, 15 years I spent in the tech world. So whether it was for hardware technology, software technology, and I was always in marketing, got my degree in marketing. So I spent a lot of time in what they called field marketing, which is working with sales, working with your channel partners, which we would be what we in this world we call reseller or distributor. Okay. So I would build programs for them to hit sales goals. So whether they had a sales goal of $5 million of our product, how does the manufacturing company, our company that sells it, get them there? Because those resellers need that sort of financial support and those programs built for them. So that in a nutshell is what I did for 15 years.
And then you got into the reline world.
Right. So obviously there's something that crosses over industries regardless. It doesn't matter if it's I know everything about construction or I knew everything about different technologies I went to work for, right? It's can you build a program? Can you hit sales goals? Can you make sure that you're constantly realigning your goals based on what's working and what's not working? And ultimately, at the end of the day, that can transfer across to any industry. So when I was approached by you about this opportunity, you obviously knew that too. Like it didn't matter if software and technology didn't correlate to construction. It matters of can you build programs and still focus on sales goals for a different industry, right?
Correct.
So at the end of the day, that's sort of where we are and why we're sitting here. That's how I got into it.
I like it. So as of today, what is your current role in the company? What other roles have you had in the reline industry? And give us just a little bit more background on what roles you have now and involved in the last year and a half.
Right. It's almost exactly a year and a half now. So my current role is all sales and marketing for TV Pipe Solutions. So that includes an 8-state territory exclusively selling SnapTight. But when we say solutions, we are truly a solutions provider. So I'm working on bringing other products into our portfolio to be able to offer, because one product doesn't fit every job. So we're also going to be offering joint seals from Hydrotite. We're also going to be offering Centripipe, which is a centrifugally cast cement liner. Okay. So things like that, and that's where I'm trying to find the right products to build in that portfolio, but also make sure we hit sales goals, work with the sales team to increase their knowledge of the reline industry as well as mine, since I really am still fairly green in this market. Before that, I was running a manufacturing facility that was making a product called Interflow, a solid wall mechanical joint HDPE product. So the challenges of that was really fun.
So where was Interflow located? That's good. You being based out of Idaho, Interflow was located
Newcastle, Indiana.
Okay, so about an hour east of Indianapolis.
Right. And with that, so I did that for my first year coming in, and I ran everything. Production schedules, sales, marketing, trying to get our brand out there, whether I was flying to Boston in January for a trade show, driving to Maine and the snowstorm for sales kickoffs. Right. It's just whatever needed to be done, but building the brand helps build the sales. So that's really what I was focused on, were those two things. Meanwhile, still making sure that the facility in Indiana knew what they were supposed to be doing, right? getting those guys safety training and getting those guys extrusion weld certified, things like that were happening back in the plant. Orders constantly changing. You know, I mean, the one nice thing about running sales is that I could also shift priorities of orders based on, you know, need and what the demand was for the projects.
Versus, say, relying on a manufacturer or whatever, when you are the manufacturer, you kind of
do that and control
row the boat the direction it needs to go.
Mm-hmm. As well as the inventory, we have to, obviously there was a lot of pipe on the ground that we needed on the ground to be able to cut the pipe to get the orders out quicker, which helped us win jobs.
Okay. So now your role is, if you're not running a manufacturing plant, then what is your role today?
So with the new kind of TV pipe solutions, my role is going to be marketing that brand and then all the products that we're going to bring under. So really my role in the next immediate, probably 3 months and 6 months, is a lot of education. I need to learn about what I don't know in the Reline industry versus what I do know and what I have spent a year and a half learning. There's a lot more to learn. So, you know, even these podcasts and sitting down with just picking brains of industry experts is going to be hugely beneficial.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a lot that we don't know what we're up against.
So you're on a similar learning path as I.
Yes.
Trying to learn as much as you can about this industry.
Right.
And getting smart people involved and trying to pick their brains and see what people have been doing this for 10, 15, 20, 30 years or more, and just trying to figure out like where this train goes.
Yep. But also building the relationships, you know, now that I'm not focused on an entire country and we're limited to our 8 states, there's going to be a lot more, you know, FaceTime that we can have with customers and really getting to know their business. On a national level, one person or 2 people can't do that very well, right? It's too big of a territory. So now there's going to be where we can actually get out and we can go to spend a day at installs and do things like that because we're not so spread so thin.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So what was a big eye-opener about the Reline or construction industry for that matter coming from the tech world? Was there something that stuck out more than anything else? Was it just a whole change of pace, speed, or I mean anything that just kind of stuck out versus what you used to do in the tech world?
Yeah. So obviously there's a much larger lack of technology in the construction world because coming from a tech company, they're always using the latest and greatest, right? Where in construction, these guys are out in the field. These guys are dealing with heavy machinery. They're not necessarily caring about using the latest technology, right? The other thing that I've really noticed is there's not a lot of direct competition, more so competition in like a broader sense of you're trying to figure out all the different products that could fit one thing, but there's very little lack of direct competition on products.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So every company kind of has their niche product? Is that
Yes,
that they prefer to use or like to use? That's kind of, or they have a couple that's their wheelhouse essentially?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, just that's different because in the software and tech world, you could have 15, 20, 50 competitors literally selling the exact same firewall.
Okay.
And that is not the case here. All the products have some sort of advantage and disadvantage that's different because they're not competing on the exact same level.
Okay. No, that makes sense. I can see that. So I was doing a little research ahead of our podcast, and one thing that always attracted me to having females in male-dominated industries, I have a history in the scrap metal recycling business, and that's a predominantly male-dominated industry. The construction industry is a really predominantly male-dominated industry, and I was Googling and I found the fact that women make up only 9% of the whole construction workforce. That includes sales, actual boots on the ground, everything. A, did you know that percentage? And B, what makes you think that you as one of the 9% can be successful in the construction industry?
No, I did not know that fact actually. I knew it was small, but that's like really small. I think part of what can make me successful is I'm not from the Reline business. So I can come in with a fresh set of eyes and give an outside perspective. I haven't been doing this for 30 years. using the same product or knowing, I don't know, thinking I know everything because I've been there for 30 years. I come in going, hey, I don't know a lot about this, but at first glance, here's what I can recommend, right?
Yeah.
And then, but I can be very open-minded to talking to an engineer and hearing their perspective and why might they not think this product is the right fit versus that product. But I can be open to that because I'm not set in my ways, which I think is very true in any industry. A lot of people, once they think they know that industry in and out, it's kind of like they're maybe not open to new ideas or learning more.
That makes sense. It'd be almost like a generational business, and the new generation comes in and they don't see things the same way their parents saw them or their ex-CEO saw them. You look at it with a fresh set of eyes and say, well, maybe there's opportunity for us to install this or look at this product, or maybe this product is new, and I could see that with a solutions company where you're not really tied in all the way to say one specific product. You kind of can give an opinion on a couple, even though you have a few that you feel are your strongest products to go at certain jobs.
Yeah.
It's still a fresh set of eyes. Never ever hurts the cause. So what is you have a background in solid wall mechanical joint.
Mm-hmm.
Just me knowing that. Is that your strongest knowledge base? Is that the solid wall?
I would say today, absolutely. I mean, running a plant for a year, selling that pipe, solely selling that pipe for a year and not selling really much else. I mean, obviously I did sell some profile, I shouldn't say obviously, I did sell some profile wall product in larger diameters. That's a great option when you're outside of solid wall sizes.
Which is made by, when you were selling it, what were you selling?
Whalite.
Made by, who's the company that manufactured? Okay.
Infrapipe.
And they're based out of Canada.
They're based out of Canada, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And they have a competitive product called, competitor down in Texas called Spiralite.
Okay.
Who makes a profile wall product, which I have personally never seen or sold. So those are the two main products. But outside of that, since that was my literally main focus, and those are the jobs I was going out and seeing, getting installed, then that's really what I had my knowledge base around. So now that's what I'm saying. I'm now kind of in learning mode on the solution side of what other things are out there when solid wall isn't the right fit.
Okay. So, and that was kind of going into my next question. So what makes a solid wall mechanical joint pipe the right fit or the wrong fit? What is its strengths and weaknesses? For anybody out there that's kind of curious, how does a snap type product work, or how does a profile wall Whalite product work? What are the pros and cons of it?
So obviously HDPE is very durable, has a very long lifespan. I mean, it's guaranteed 50 years. They say, being no one knows because it hasn't been around long enough, that you're not going to touch that pipe for over 100 years. It's tough pipe. We have a video of an install we just did. We went to and filmed last week, and they literally just dropped the pipe down in a 15-foot trench. Yeah. And it's tough pipe, so you can do that and didn't even damage the joints for them to be snapped together and slipped under the road. So there's a lot of benefits to that. You add hydraulically, you add flow, because if you're going from a corrugated pipe, in most situations, if you're not downsizing it too much, you're going to increase your hydraulics.
Which is the Manning's rating, correct?
Correct, okay. Yeah.
So Manning's rating, if going from if you look at, say, a concrete pipe or versus a corrugated pipe, the Manning's rating going downsize isn't going to adjust that much, or it will. Is it still smoother than, say, a concrete wall?
It's still smoother than because it's a smooth wall inside. Yep, inside and out. So even from a concrete, if you can not downsize too much on a concrete and line it with a smooth wall, you'll still gain flow.
Okay.
I mean, there's always going to be an engineer who has to stamp the hydraulics of it, and that's where I never pretend to be an engineer and know that that's 100% going to work, but they'll look at it, and typically your answer is going to be that you're going to increase flow.
Okay.
And there's only, on rare cases, you will get an engineer who will be concerned about that increase in flow. on the outlet end because the velocity of the water is coming out so strong.
Okay.
Some of the sediment and it can push out debris quickly. There's just the different things that can come up with that.
So, if those are the strengths of the solid wall, like a snap type product or a whale-like product, what are the weaknesses of that product compared to other products that exist out there in the Reline world?
Well, so with solid wall, some of it is that your diameter, right? You're going to you can only go to 63-inch pipe. So that will push you out of any large diameter projects that's where profile wall can come in.
Okay.
Profile wall, though, it's going to be extrusion welded. So that sometimes a lot of, if contractors don't have that certification or someone that can do that won't always be the best option. Other products can be less expensive, and a lot of times, most of the time, it comes down to cost. They're going to go out, and if they can spec a job 3 different ways, and if it's going to be a long run, that they'll come in and do a cured in place for half the cost of HDPE, then an engineer might be willing to do that. So a lot of it's educating the engineers too on when is HDPE a better fit, even whether profile wall, solid wall versus a cured in place, or when is a concrete liner a better fit than other products.
So what percentage of jobs do you think are government, a .gov job versus, say, a private job? Because anything that's .gov usually is bid out. They're usually looking for the cheapest cost, not necessarily all the time, but it seems to go that way a lot of times. What do you in the year and a half you've been selling solid wall mechanical joint pipe? What percentage of the bids are .gov jobs? Roughly speaking, is it half? It's 3/4?
I wouldn't even say that much. I would say, if you're talking snap tight specifically, maybe 15%. But it really varies by engineers and the installers in the state. Like, does the install crew really get to dictate what goes in that pipe? Do they get to go look at it and say, hey, this is the best product, and the engineer has an open mind to say, okay, or is it really just totally up to an engineer and what their personal preference is on different? So when I was doing this nationally, states varied.
Okay.
A lot.
So really it's a lot of the engineers are involved in this, maybe more than a lot of people would think. Their opinion, their specialty, because I assume even engineers have what their wheelhouse is or what they prefer to see in their state or their municipality or whatever.
Yeah, so it's really educating engineers on the various products, the advantages and disadvantages of all of them.
Okay.
So.
That makes sense. No, that's good. That's what always was kind of racked my brain, was what made an engineer go one way or the other, and I think some of it's cost, personal preference, and there's probably a lot of variables.
Mm-hmm. And that's for right now. TV Pipe Solutions, one of our big focuses for the sales team and the field people are to get in front of those engineering firms. And while we love Snap Tight and it's a very big product of ours, if that's not the right product, what are the advantages of the other product lines? Just so they know, but then they still come to us and say, okay, here's the project, and I want your guys' opinion as Reline experts, right? And that's what we're trying to become.
Yeah, exactly. So without naming specific contractors or job sites or instances, have you ever ran across a job where the wrong Reline product was used? And
yes.
Why do you think that was?
So we actually sold a project, and it wasn't anyone's fault necessarily. It's just that they hadn't gone through the entire pipe. So they went, glanced in it. It was 100 feet, and they thought, okay, we'll order the HDPE mechanical joint pipe. We'll get it installed. Well, in the few weeks that they got, between them looking at it and the pipe, this is a problem. And the pipe arriving, a deflection happened even further, so that they couldn't get the size of pipe that they ordered all the way through. So then the problem is they already started pushing the pipe and snapping the joints. So at that point, what they should have done was ordered smaller pipe and should have went all the way through and looked to see that deflection. and know that it could have collapsed a little more by the time they got the pipe.
Okay.
So that's just, again, that's a lesson learned, right? That's a big oops, because what they ended up having to do was go in, order smaller pipe, extrusion weld. I mean, it was a lot messier and a lot more expensive for them in the long run.
And so part of the key of, and I know this just from having Interflow and being involved in Interflow, is the key to making sure you are aligning with the right size is going through and measuring every few feet.
Yes.
Because the opening may fit a 54-inch pipe, but somewhere in the middle where the road's been collapsing, a 54 may not fit through. So as you're shoving it through, you run into the deflection that you're talking about.
Right, and then you should have ordered a 48-inch pipe. So that's exactly right. Or looked at a different product that doesn't need that can go down on a curvature, or that can handle that downsizing. If you are worried about a flow, there's other options out there. Another one that comes to mind was a grouting job gone bad. They had installed a lot of ovaled pipe and brought in an inexperienced, because he was the cheapest option in the area, but he didn't know cellular grout. He knew concrete grout, and pumped too heavy a concrete grout and collapsed one end of the pipe. But we worked with them, their reseller worked with them, we got on phone calls, we got outside kind of engineering perspective, and at the end of the day, we'll help do whatever we can to get it right.
Okay.
And give them the best options that we know of to fix it.
So, mechanical joints, all wall aside, what products out there excite you the most, or that you want to know more about because you think that fits the wheelhouse for a lot of the projects that you've been looking at lately? Or is there just something out there that piques your interest on the Reline side? So,
some of the stuff that I really want to focus on is I want to personally go see a center pipe install. I think that this centrifugally cast spray liner is a really interesting option, especially in extremely large diameters in the right environments. I love profile wall. I think Whale Light makes a great product. I just am curious when this option would be better suited in certain situations than a profile wall HDPE product.
Cost wise, is large diameter centrifugally cast, is that, I assume it probably depends on the diameter, but is it in the same range as a profile wall pipe? Is it cheaper, more expensive?
In longer runs, it can be much more cost effective, partly due to shipping in some of it, because once you get into larger pipe, you've got over height, over width on shipping. There's a lot of regulations on it, right? So there's part of that. Another thing I was going to mention too is in high fire areas, so Forest Service areas where they do worry about a lot of burning, they don't always want to look at HDPE, and some engineers will rule that out
just because if it caught fire.
Because and HDPE has a fairly high, I don't even know what that is off the top of my head, burn threshold, but that could still be a concern, where if you bring in a cement liner, that's no longer a concern. If a fire goes through that pipe, you've got a cement liner in there versus an HDPE liner.
We ran into that same issue with selling double wall HDPE corrugated pipe to Forest Service. They want steel culvert,
right?
Because they don't want to take the chance that if a forest fire goes through there, it burns up the pipe. Now they have to come back in, replace the pipe, replace the road. It just creates a
And when that steel culvert starts to rust out, or the ground pressure's starting to collapse, what do you do? So that's where we need to have other options. There's not a one solution fits all. So
that makes sense.
So I would like to dive into that one more. I'm really excited about the Hydrotech Hydrotite joint seal that we're just starting to represent. I'm looking forward to that, and I know that we've met with a couple of county maintenance crews, and there's not a lot of RCP pipe out there, but there's just enough where I think that product will be a good fit for us.
Okay. So, give me a project that you've either sold or been around or seen done, or that you're the most proud of, as far as like either you've helped them find a good solution for it, or it was just a big project for you that you undertook?
Oh, well, off the top of my head, there was a fairly large oval job that we had kind of gone back and forth with a reseller in Kansas that we ended up getting with the Kansas City Turnpike. So I think that, and the reason I say that is because they got our product, they used it for the first time, and they loved it. So then they became repeat customers. So I think that when that happens, those type of projects, you stick out in your head as like, wow, that's really cool. That was, it's worth the time invested to make sure that they had all the materials they needed to get on a call and talk to them about the differences of products and why there's certain ones that fit, but then they also become longtime customers.
So, I mean, essentially, as a reseller, where you're not the boots on the ground, you're not the one installing it, you're not the engineer designing it. I mean, you are the middleman selling the product, doing the transportation, all the greasing all the tracks in between everything else to make sure the project goes off as smoothly as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, that is, essentially.
Well, and it's building the relationships, right? Because people will buy from people they like. At the end of the day, like if I genuinely like the product, but I genuinely don't like the person on the other end of that product, I may go find another product, whether I like it or not, because I don't want to work with that person. So I think you say projects, but I think, and sometimes it's just relationship building and managing those relationships so that even when you have to call with bad news, like your trucker broke down and is going to be 3 days late delivering, or they ran out of hours and they have to send another, whatever it is that happens in this industry, I've had to make those phone calls, but trying to say that we're doing everything we can to fix it, right?
That makes sense.
And make sure they trust you that you are really doing that.
Yep. So, what do you enjoy the most about the industry, your job? What gets you up every day?
That I don't know what I don't know. I know that's a terrible answer.
There's a lot to still learn.
A lot to still learn. Coming from the tech world, technology's always changing, and that's true. But like I have told you before in conversations is, you could leave from one tech company to another and you just needed to learn that new technology, but the channel partners and the sale, they didn't change. This is, I literally have to learn an entire new industry and so many products. And, and then a contractor just called me yesterday and was telling me about another product that he wants me to look into and maybe consider repping. And that's where it's like, well, I never even heard of this one. There's so many products out there and there's just a lot to take in. So I think that, and then being a thought leader, there's not a lot of resellers that cover 8 states. So yeah. I think we have a chance to like fill a void or, big shoes that don't even exist and kind of come out as just, here, look at this company. I mean, they went from 3 yards to a huge, more Northwest and even outside of the Northwest, all the way to the Rockies brand.
Yeah. I think, that's what gets me up every day, and the reason for even starting the podcast, right, is there's just so much out there in the Reline industry that we didn't know even existed, and that's what excites me, is like we've been in the pipe business for so long, for so many years, and there's this whole industry out there that we didn't even know was there.
Yeah.
And now that we're in the middle of it, it's cool. It's infrastructure driven. It's necessary. I mean, the relationships that I've made over the last 2 years has been crazy. It's just been super interesting. So this is a little bit off the beaten path, but give me 1 or 2 people that have been influential in your life or your career. Somebody that you've looked up to, or and whether it's previous job, parents, anything.
Well, I'll stick with the Reline answer first.
Cool.
So Hugh Mickle, when I was hired, when I knew nothing about anything, I will tell you that guy was just a wonderful mentor. While he represented a certain product lines of Reline material, he also knew that I needed to understand the industry. And so he sent me all kinds of PowerPoint presentations because he's a thought leader, right? And so he wanted me to know about all the things out there that I could possibly learn about. Whether at the time it was the Contec products, or it was Interflow, or it was SnapTie, or PVC, or ADS. There's so much, and he wanted me to kind of have here's a playbook that you should be using as just to wrap your head around in your first 6 months of this crazy world, right?
Yep.
So I really respected him, and when I had problems or questions, I would definitely call him. Outside of that, I'd say my dad is a huge inspiration, because when I called him to tell him I was going to leave my job and go into the construction industry, he went, "You're a brave girl." Since he's been in construction for 40 years, he was like, "I can't believe you're going to do it." But he's like, "I know you'll have fun, and you'll get yourself some pink boots and go at it."
Yeah.
So, those probably, and my dad supports me no matter what, but I just think it was finally, he was like, he now literally at, Thanksgiving dinner, I can have a conversation with him about jobs and projects, and we're speaking the same language. Where
now you know what an excavator is, and what a backhoe is, and everything.
I talk to him about these installs I go to, and I get a watch, and he thinks it's great because it's like, holy crap, he now understands what I'm watching, where before we were two different languages, He didn't know anything about the tech world. My dad barely got a smartphone a few years ago.
I like it. Hugh's a great guy. I've met him. Hugh taught me a ton. So if you say Hugh, that rings true for me as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he's right up there. He's right up there with me. As far as one of the guys that I really looked up to. I mean, he's not currently in the Reline world anymore, per se, but maybe we'll recruit him back.
Yeah.
See if we can get him back in.
Yeah.
All right, one last question. What can be done to bring more awareness to the Reline industry and all the people involved in this great industry? Is anything off the top of your head that we could do to put out there to say, hey, this industry exists? This is a big part of 2020 and beyond because of all the infrastructure that needs repaired. What more can be done in your eyes?
No, I think things like this, exactly. I think that the lack of use of technology, because these guys are out in the field and they're construction workers, and they're not spending all their time in front of their computer. But when they do, give them valuable content, give them something where they're going to learn. I know there's a lot of shows out there that we do attend. We'll be at the UCT conference down in Fort Worth in January with SnapTite. We'll be with SnapTite at the No Dig show in Denver in
April,
March
or April, April, I believe.
So we're gonna be front and center with our brand, so that we can answer questions, we can learn, we want to talk to industry experts. But I think bringing everyone together with this kind of easier platform, they don't even have to come to you, they can just watch it from their computer. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So I think you'll see people adopt more technology, social media, all of that is only growing because it's where everyone's headed, it's where everyone's at, it's where everyone communicates.
Makes sense. All right, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you online? Name?
So I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram. We're on TV Pipe Solutions is on Instagram. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. tvpipesolutions.com. You can email me at Cassie@tvpipesolutions.com. So I'm pretty easy to get a hold of.
All right. Thank you, Cassie.
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks,
it.
Brett.
Take care.
America's aging underground infrastructure will need to be dealt with in the upcoming years. Our mission with Reline Unknown is to help individuals and organizations gain insight into the pipe, reline, and infrastructure world and help process the key decision, reline or replace. Thank you for listening.